two.
Welcome to another edition of Sharpe Takes. I'm delighted today to have as my guest Pat McDonald. Pat claims to have the greatest number of agencies she's been head of in the state of Vermont, positions she's held, and all has done quality work under governors Snelling, Dean, and Douglas. And I served with her briefly in the House of Representatives and have found her to be a person of quality and thoughtfulness. And I've asked her here if she would share her thoughts on where we are with
Thank you.
public education. Welcome, Pat.
Thank you. Nice to be here on this side of the table because, as you know, I do a show in Montpelier,
Yeah.
similar to this, but we cover more than education. We just bring in people. And you and I signed a bill together, and we got it passed, if you remember.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had Dixie Valley asked us to sign a bill to allow dental assistants to be on the board.
Yes, that was
That's
a
it.
good step forward.
That
I
was
think.
excellent.
Yeah.
They were, and Dixie still talks about it, so that was
Oh,
great.
good.
Anyway, education, we're in trouble. I don't think what we have is sustainable. Costs too much, and our performance ratings are going in the wrong direction. And for the amount of money we are spending, we are the second highest cost per student in the United States, and that's not a good place to be. And our performance does not reflect the amount of money we're spending, and it's a problem, I think.
Yeah. So where do we want to be?
Well, reverse both those things I just said. less money and higher performance ratings. There were several reports put out this year. The governor and Secretary Saunders put out their report about what needs to be fixed. There's one being worked on by a legislative committee that I heard they're going to be putting out their recommendations at the end of March. And there was a legislator who also put in his recommendations, and of course, Campaign for Vermont, which is a nonprofit that I work for. I'm their president. We put out about a week ago, I guess, a pretty detailed report on what we would like to see.
Could you outline that for the public?
Yes, for sure. The governor, he put on, I think we have, of all of our superintendent units, the governor boiled them down to 5 units. And we recommended having supervisory unions centered around, you'd like this, Dave, centered around tech centers.
Yes.
And we have supported that for the last 6-8 years because we are very supportive in the Campaign for Vermont for tech centers. Our businesses need people with technical skills. When I was a deputy commissioner of education under David Walk, he was commissioner, I worked with the tech centers directly. I took that as my sort of assignment, and I brought in a lot of businesses to the education to talk to the people that were there, and they just didn't catch on to what the businesses were asking. They want people, they'll train them, but they want people to come with some basic skills.
Yeah.
And you can get that at the tech center. And when you graduate, the jobs pay well, and we're all going to need plumbing for the rest of our lives. So,
and it's hard to call India and have a plumber come and
yes,
fix your sink, right?
Yeah, exactly. And it's a great occupation to go to the tech centers. So anyway, there are 17 of them. There are 2 areas where 2 tech centers are very close to each other, Essex and Burlington, and St. Johnsbury and
Linden.
Thank you, Linden. They could be in the same so we would have 15. And I think that's kind of the Vermont right sizing. It's not too big, it's not too small. 5 that the governor proposed is just way too big. If we're worried about community and culture and local control, 5 doesn't do it. And I don't think they get many people to pay attention because they'd have to drive from one end of that, could be hills and dales, and be far away. And so we think that would boil down to 15. 15 SUs are perfect. And what else I recommended, what they recommended in this report was they went back to a foundation formula. They supported that. They would give a set amount for all the schools, and then there'd be a 25% cap on that amount. That amount over and above the level set would be paid for by the taxes of the local community. We also put in there to maybe tax them a little higher on the money, just to try to keep the cost down. And and we also recommended some incentives for superintendents and principals who would be responsible for the performance ratings and just making sure that it's cost effective. They would be given a very substantial incentive bonus for their work, and we think that might help a little bit. What else is there? There's so many things.
I'm sorry, you mean higher pay for superintendents? Is that
No,
what you're
not
saying?
higher pay. Actually, when they merge, they might get a little less pay on a weekly basis or whatever the state pays or the schools pay, but they would be eligible to get maybe up to a $10,000 bonus separate from they'd have to earn it
By doing what?
by meeting the standards. We've requested that the state board set statewide, which I am thrilled to even read it, statewide standards for everybody, because right now everybody does their own thing. And to me, when you go out and look for a job and you say, I was educated in Vermont, they should know what that means and not know what it means to graduate from Castleton or from the state university. It should really mean something. We're known for our quality of goods, for how well our residents work, the quality of their workmanship. And so if you say, I went to school and graduated in Vermont, bells should go off.
Yeah.
And if we have a standard that everybody in the state would meet, especially, may I throw in a national discussion, especially if we're looking at dissolving the
Major portions of the federal government.
Exactly. If education is going away, we have to be sure that our state is training our people to go out and work and make good money and make us proud.
Yeah.
And if it's up to us, then I think a statewide goals should be met by everybody, and that will solve a lot of local problems.
I think they're actually already in place. They're just not enforced, and they don't cover, private schools or religious schools or.
Right, and there's always an issue about that, and I don't think that there were. I think they need to be revisited if we were looking at them. We've been talking about that.
Upgraded?
Yes, upgraded. Just look at the century we're in and what needs to be upgraded. There's so much that can be done at schools. I interviewed on my show a woman from IBM who's their CIO, and she's very big on AI. And when talking to her about what could be done in our schools, it's just mind-boggling.
Yeah.
And would save us money. And, we're all used to using Zoom now. So you could have one teacher who is an AI specialist and talk to all the schools in your supervisory union. That's right.
Yeah, we have right now, it seems to me, a huge conflict over electronics. Like, we have this notion that we should ban cell phones from schools on the one hand, and on the other hand, we're saying, well, we should use AI and this new technology that's coming down the road. So I think we have a chore in front of us to figure out how we use to best serve students.
Right.
How do we use new technology?
Yeah, I agree with you, and but it's there. And when I was at the Department of Ed, I kept trying to talk about Zoom. If a school can't afford do they teach Latin anymore? Not many Latin teachers in Vermont, but if you wanted to teach Latin, you have
more like Chinese.
Or there you go, Chinese or Spanish or whatever. You go into one school and use Zoom, and then the teacher would rotate around the different classes. And you learn Spanish or learn Chinese or whatever you wanted.
Yeah. an opportunity to bring greater programming to students
Exactly.
by
But
using electronics.
they never wanted to do it. I don't
Yeah.
understand, because we had the capability,
Yeah.
but they didn't do it.
I think some schools are actually dabbling in this.
I hope so.
That might be the nicest term to use, particularly around math and using electronic
Right.
ways of teaching math.
That's great.
And I think there's a consortium in the state that works in that direction.
Oh,
But
great.
certainly we could better utilize those tools, I
Because
think.
our kids are way ahead of us anyway.
Yeah.
They would know exactly what's happening in their classrooms, and I think they'd be good with it,
Yeah.
because, as you were talking about taking cell phones away, they're used to all these gadgets,
Yeah.
and they're not afraid of them like some of us older people are.
If I could turn your attention
Yes.
a moment to Addison County,
Yeah.
because looking at your report from the campaign of
Yep.
Vermont, it seems like you would have Addison County be one supervisory district,
Right.
or supervisory union,
Yeah.
is the term you used. And would there be like one tax rate for the entire county? Is that what you're talking about? And how would there be the connection of the high school students with the tech center, and how would community elementary schools be treated?
I think in the supervisory union, I think the tech center, I can't speak English. Tech centers would be their budgets would be at the supervisory union level. They would be just part of the gang,
Yeah.
and they'd be sitting at the table with if they're having meetings and board meetings and stuff, and they would be equal to the schools, and I think that would help. We've had some ideas about how to share the funding. The legislature has tried unsuccessfully for the last 2 years to try to fix the funding for tech ed students, and they haven't been able to do that yet.
No, and I think that is the hurdle. That is the secret to bringing career and technical education to the level that it needs to be.
Right.
Is so long as the so-called sending school has to have as a budget item in Addison County, it's $34,000 per pupil
Yep.
to send that student from one of the local high schools. Middlebury, Virgins, or Bristol each have a high school. If a student wants to go from there, which they have a right to do under state law, to go down to the technical center in Middlebury, that's $34,000 per pupil. So Mount Abe, let's say, projects having 10 pupils go down, so that's 340,000. Wow. Let's say 20 want to go. That now you've blown the budget out of the water, right?
Right.
And so there's this financial tension between and a competition for students between the technical centers and the high schools, which is not, in my view, not good for students. It needs to be seamless.
Right.
You need to be able to take AP math in the morning and electricity in the afternoon, because guess what? Modern electricity requires you have a pretty high level of math.
Oh, exactly.
So you need both of those skills to be a successful electrician. So until and unless we make that seamless, is that part of what you're trying to suggest?
I think that's what we're trying. I go back to, I come from, in part, New York, and they had the BOCES system. And in high school, the kids would come in the morning, the BOCES kids would come in the morning, do just what you're saying, math and science, whatever, and then they'd get on the bus and go to the tech center for the afternoon, and they'd be back at time to get on the bus to go home. And that's how I was used to it. And I think it works. And there's no duplication of effort from the tech center and the schools. And I think if they're in the center, and part of the group considered on an equal level, that it should work with some leadership and guidance up front, because
in the end, it's all about people.
Isn't
they going
that
to cooperate?
Yeah.
To what extent can we make it work?
One of the points we brought out in the report is that under one of the federal programs for education gave the Department of Ed the right and so did one of our statutes, the right to go into a school if they're failing and take over administrative duties and get them back on track. But they've never done that here, ever. They've never even hinted at it. But they've got the authority to do that, to keep folks on,
Yeah.
maybe on, and give them the support maybe that they need. Maybe they're lacking some.
So we
some
move in the direction that you're hopeful for.
I do.
Yeah.
I think.
And then
We have to do something.
in our county, after the passage of Act 46, which has been problematic in some areas, I
Just
think
a little.
some areas have embraced it and have felt it's been a very good law. Others not so much. In Addison County, each of the 3 districts, I'm going to refer to them as Virgins, Bristol, and Middlebury, because those are the hubs of the three districts. Each of them tried to close schools. Virgins did in fact close the Addison Town Elementary School. Middlebury, I believe they closed one school, and they attempted to close Ripton, and then that became a big brouhaha. Actually, that's still under concern.
Yep.
And then in Bristol, the superintendent proposed closing 3 elementary schools, which resulted in Lincoln departing the district, forming its own school district.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
That's interesting.
formed its own school district. It maintains its community elementary school and then vouchers students beyond 6th grade, 7th to 12th
All you need
grade.
is a board for the school, and you're all set, right? Just
Well,
Wow.
I'm curious though. What it seems to me that in your proposal, you had a single budget that included all the elementary
Right.
schools that would not that might very well lead to the closure of a number of community elementary schools, which in this county created outrage.
we didn't propose that. We proposed to keep all the schools that are here and keep their boards, and then have the supervisory union have a board.
But all the money would be controlled at the supervisory union.
Right, and the principal and the local board would have to do the budget to present it to the SU, we weren't looking, because Act 46, everybody thought it was focused on saving money.
No, nobody.
There wasn't that word in that bill anywhere. There was no
no effort to save money.
No,
there was an effort to deliver better quality.
Yeah, but it got worse.
I don't think so, actually.
Oh, you don't?
No.
Well, the numbers.
I think it's spotty, I'll say.
Well, I think the trouble is it's spotty enough that overall the performance ratings are going down.
I think I say this because I think the 3 superintendents in Addison County all say that things got better under Act 46 in terms of student performance.
I don't. Maybe parents didn't understand that. I know one group that merged together. One of the schools had a huge debt load.
Yes.
And when they merged, everybody had to take on the debt load, and there was a lot of angst about that, which I don't blame them.
Yeah.
So they got stuck.
It's unfortunately, I think, both in terms of many of the current proposals and with Act 46, the notion that one size fits all in this state is a faulty notion.
Yeah.
And hindsight is nice to have.
Yeah, right.
but I think, going forward, we shouldn't try to do like one size fits all, because we know that doesn't work.
Yep. One of the things that we included in our proposal was it wouldn't be the same tax rate. If your town has maybe more children that have disabilities and need more attention, you would actually get a little more because you've got those expenses. I remember when I served on the committee on education in the State House, and one school came in and they had a family because they adopted 5 kids with disabilities. Well, that just shot the cost way up, and it just takes. And bless them for doing that. I'm not complaining about that. That's a wonderful thing to do. But from a budget perspective, it really
I think the weighting that went into effect has gone a long ways to dealing with that issue.
Yeah. Have you seen the results of? We've been looking to see if we could see the results of the new weighting, which I thought was perfect. I loved it.
Yeah.
What they were looking at, the different things they looked at to weigh the area and the superintendency unit. Have you seen that it's made? We thought it would take a couple of years.
Yes, I think it will take a couple of years.
Yeah.
What we know in the immediate past is that for districts that had a pretty high poverty rate, including our district here,
Right.
The effect on the tax rates was minimal. Whereas some communities, I believe South Burlington, maybe Champlain Valley District, where there was a pretty low level of poverty and a low level of English language learners,
Right.
the two primary weights,
Right.
I'll say, in the weightings changes, they saw tax rates in the 30% range.
Right.
So that compounded the other issues, healthcare and other issues that push tax rates up so far in the not this past year, but the year before when the weightings first went into place.
Yeah, I'm anxious to see, eager, that's anxious, the wrong word, eager to see what that impact is. And I think it will take a couple of years, but that was a very thoughtful and interesting discussion about the weights. I attended a lot of the public meetings just to understand it. And it all made sense. If you're dealing with the family with 5 kids that need special help,
you need extra money.
You need some help yourself. Yeah, you need some extra money to give the kids what they need.
To shift for a moment to finances, I think one of the things that has created this impetus towards Back to the Future with the foundation formula is that 5 districts in the state with high levels of poverty got this tax capacity, this ability to raise a lot more money per dollar of taxes than wealthier communities, use that tax capacity to lower tax rates for their citizens rather than to give more resources to those 5 kids in that family that you just brought up. So I think that created this impetus. Okay, we're gonna actually give them the money so that it's not a tax rate thing, but they're actually going to have adequate resources per child to help these children in need. So that leads to my concern in terms of the foundation formula and what the 25% or whatever it is over the foundation amount.
Right.
First, I think if the foundation amount is actually equal to or less than what these poor districts are giving to their students, we've not improved equity at all.
No, right.
So it has to be a substantial foundation amount.
I have to say my Brigham complaint. This is only me. I don't know anybody else who agrees with me, but in Brigham, the Supreme Court said it had to be substantially equal.
Yeah.
But they didn't define substantially equal.
They didn't.
They sent it to the legislature, who, in my mind, took the easy way out. Sorry. But they assigned dollar amounts, that if everybody had the same amount, then everybody be equal. And I don't agree with that, because money does not improve. It may give you all the bells and whistles, but if you don't have good teachers and good quality standards and the atmosphere to encourage kids, it's not going to work. And I think substantially equal was just a bad phrase, and we didn't spend time talking about it.
Yeah.
I may be
fortunately,
wrong,
neither of us were there.
That's true. It's not my fault.
It's them behind us.
Exactly, the other guys. But that doesn't make... And a dollar in Burlington does not go as far as a dollar in Bristol.
Yeah.
Right?
That leads us into this discussion about a statewide teacher's contract. Are you going to pay a math teacher in Newport the same as you pay a math teacher in Burlington?
Our proposal says it's the superintendent's responsibility, so there would be 15 separate contracts. I personally have always pushed for a statewide teacher's contract, and I think my approach was in Burlington, a teacher gets paid X bucks, sort of like the foundation formula, but it's, I forget what they call it in paying people more money, but in Burlington, you need more money to
A shift differential, if
yeah,
you will.
a differential. I think that's it. To give them additional funding to live in Burlington and to teach in Burlington. Now, if they move to Bristol, they would go back possibly to the basic.
You base it on what, average income or house value, average house value as an indication of wealth in the community?
Well,
or what?
whatever, however I presume housing, that seems to be the
crux of the matter
yes,
at the moment.
Yeah, may change. But I think we would give them that extra money, whatever that amount is, to work and teach in Burlington. And then if you came here to Bristol, you'd probably get less and go back to the foundation formula for teachers. Because teaching can be quantified, and but not where you live. That can be way more expensive or less.
Yeah.
So
it does really boil down to the people.
Yeah,
the teacher. Those of us who have been successful, I think, can all pretty much all point to some teacher in our childhood.
Yes, we can.
And we can remember that teacher, and we can say it's partly because of that teacher that I am who I am today. And for me, it was my high school physics teacher that really made a difference for me.
There you go. Mine was Mr. Watson, history.
Yeah.
There's Mr. Watson. But he was so kind and just was willing to sit and explain things to me.
Yeah.
But anyway, in our proposal, and I wish people would go on Campaign for Vermont, campaignforvermont.org, and read it, because it's not that long. And I think it's pretty comprehensive. There's a lot of additional talk that has to happen to set the details of some of these things. We had also proposed to have some grants, that if a principal comes up with an innovative kind of out of the box thinking and presents it, that they would get
similar to what the Rowland Foundation is doing.
Yes, exactly. Give them some grant money, with the caveat that if it doesn't work, dump it. Don't keep it going because you're getting money
forever
or something,
and ever,
right? Which we do, and just and incentivize people to be creative, and I think that's good.
Yeah, to the extent we can involve good people at every level, assistants, teachers, superintendents. And Secretary of Education, for a matter of fact. And you spoke earlier when we were getting ready about leadership and what we needed to do in terms of getting everybody on the same page.
Right. Well, this group that they have put together, we were very disappointed in seeing the names in that group the legislature put together, and I love them all. They're wonderful people, but they're the same people that have been in every other group that came before this one. And I interviewed one of the people on the board. I won't mention who, but anyway, that person didn't think that it was very successful.
Yeah.
That they're not going to come out with dynamite, recommendations to fix this, because it's the same people churning over we need new people.
Yeah.
That understand education, understand our kids, and how much this state can afford, because it's bad.
We have a lot of new people in the legislature, and I've testified a couple of times, and prior to testimony, I've looked at the bios of the committee members. There are some very bright people.
There are
in the legislature, and I would think that I don't think that your proposal or their proposal or anybody's proposal is going to happen in a year or two.
No.
I just don't think it's going to happen that fast.
No.
And what might be a wise step forward is to have a study committee made up primarily of legislators who have a deadline. I think part of the problem with the commission is that it could just go on and on and on and on, and then you don't get anywhere.
No, and it is. I've tuned in on occasion, and it's pretty much the same old. Been there, done that, and I think we need brand new ideas. Especially if we're not going to have the feds to fall back on, and to go to them, which we've done before, go to them for assistance. You call them up and they'll help you. But we need new people to sit and really take this seriously.
Well, we're running out of time, but you brought up a really good point that shouldn't be missed, and that is that I think I've heard estimates of over $400 million are at risk if we get nothing from the federal government. That's a big chunk of change
for this little state.
And if that really happens, that is going to be an extreme challenge for all of us to continue to deliver education for our children.
My take is I don't think we're going to lose that kind of money. We may lose the people behind the money, but maybe giving it to ourselves to maybe there'll be a list of having statewide standards. I mean, maybe there'll be a list of what to do with the money, but I can't imagine they're going to cut us off. That's like disaster.
Yeah. Well, I'm hopeful too.
Yes, I am.
It's hard to know where we're headed.
Well, we're pretty resilient. Whatever happens, we'll just figure it out.
And we're Yankees at the bottom of the line. We'll make do. We'll figure it out.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you.
I think it's helpful for the public to understand some different ways of how we're approaching this education challenge.
Yes. Anyone can reach out and give me a call or send me an email, patmcdonald444@gmail.com. Be glad to talk to you, especially since I know a lot of people in Bristol. This is where I moved when I first came to Vermont. And we built our house here.
Great.
Yeah. I love Bristol.
It's a wonderful place to live.
The parade on 4th of July is the best parade
It is the best
ever.
parade. Yes,
Ever.
it is.
Anyway, thank you, Dave. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Right.
And thank you for joining us for another edition of Sharpe Takes.
Good job.